Hey everybody, it's Matt at the cabin again. So welcome back. Got another episode here. Um, Had kind of a stressful week at work. Nothing too crazy, but enough that in the past I would have partook in some bad habits. Probably would have drank each evening to relieve some of that stress, to deal with it in that way. Then fall back right into that bad cycle of getting up early for work the next day, not feeling great, whether it's a hangover or just feeling out of it, not feeling up to it. And then the cycle would have continued. But since I've been sober, I've decided, obviously, I'm not going to do that. And I have some other resources and some other things that I will take part in and participate in. And so I went on a great sunrise walk this morning to set my goals a little bit and things like that. So I got a great fire in front of me. I have an awesome cup of coffee. So let's get this rolling. That stressful week had me thinking a little bit about um, how can we assess if we have a drinking problem, right? A lot of people don't want to use the term, am I an alcoholic? So I guess I will just say um, there's a bunch of questions that you could ask yourself to really determine if you have a drinking problem or not. And I'm going to go through some of those questions right now. I might answer some of those for you from my experience, but I might not. Just depends on, where my head is and, what I'm thinking and stuff like that. And then at the end, I will touch upon a few different resources. And I always talk about these resources as a great way to help yourself. Or if you're listening to this and you can help somebody else, then that would be awesome too. Again, if you see some smoke or hear anything like that, it's a little bit breezy out, late October, almost November in New York State. So that's kind of what I'm working on. So let's get right into it. Question one: do you drink alone? So do you find yourself often drinking alone because no one else is around, no one else wants to drink with you, and it doesn't really matter to you, so you're going to drink alone because it's a stress reliever, and that's what you're going to make that decision upon, and doesn't really matter to you if other people are going to do that or not. Sometimes you surround yourself with people that do the same things that you do and will drink a ton just like you do, and then you kind of think it's normal. Not until you become sober, or you open your eyes and you really think, hey, does everybody do this? Because you're going to find out the answer is no. You can find groups of friends that are out there, that won't drink at all. And then you start to evaluate and assess, okay, there are these other groups out there. I don't have to drink, and I don't have to be a part of this group of friends that's just going to drink. So if you drink alone, that's a question you have to ask yourself. And if you answer yes to that question, that you drink alone often, that's down the path of having a drinking problem. Second, do you drink more than you want to? Do you plan to go out with a couple friends and have a drink, a couple glasses of wine, and before you know it, you're 8, 10, 12 drinks in, you're having shots, you're doing all those types of things. You can't get home because you drove there and you were not planning on drinking as much. And, the idea that you have to drive home now isn't anything you really need to worry about. But now it is something you have to worry about. So do you end up drinking a lot more than you plan to drink or that you want to drink because you can't put the brakes on it? I've said this before. Any drink is going to be worse than no drinks for your mental health, for your physical body. It's a toxin for your body. But at the end of the day, I care about me and the people that I love the most. If you're one who can handle a couple drinks with no problem, you have to make those choices. Third, do you try to stop drinking but you can't? Whether that's during an evening or a day, or have you tried before to get sober for over an extended period of time, whether it's a month, 60 days, 90 days, whatever the case is, and you're just not able to do it? You find yourself drawn back to the same habits. You find yourself going back to the same stress relievers, and you're unable to be successful with taking a pause from drinking. Next, does drinking take up a lot of your time and a lot of your money? So those are self-explanatory, right? If a lot of your habits are centered around drinking, that's going to take up a lot of your time. You're not going to have time to keep yourself healthy, to focus on your nutrition, to get your steps in, to exercise, to be mindful, to try meditation, to do all those different types of things. And certainly if a lot of your money is going to alcohol as well, that's another factor that you just have to take into account. Do you put off buying other things or necessities or even wants because alcohol is something that always is a priority, and you just continue to do that, and you're unable to do that? Next is risky behaviors. Now, this is one that I think is paramount to my experience. Did you engage, or do you engage in risky behaviors when you're under the influence or when you drink too much? And that could be a lot of things, right? That could be, I spoke in my first video about how along my journey I physically hurt myself, mentally hurt myself, emotionally hurt myself, probably mentally and socially and emotionally hurt others just because of some of the decisions I made and some of my actions. And there's that, you don't want to do that. You don't want to go down that road. So do you engage in more risky behaviors? And is part of that binge drinking? Like, is that part of it? That's another whole thread to this. So one of those risky behaviors is drinking and driving. Do you put yourself in a situation where you've drank too much, you know you shouldn't drive, but you make the bad decision that could kill you or kill somebody else, and you get on the road and do that? Certainly that is a horrible decision to make, and you should never make that decision. There are way too many resources now where you don't have to make that decision. Call a friend, call Uber, Lyft, whatever. There's ways that you never, ever have to do that this day and age. But that is a huge red flag for you if you engage in risky behaviors when you're drinking. Yeah, you probably have a drinking problem. Next up, do you have cravings or urges to drink? You know, I talked about this when I was going to get a couple of bottles of wine for a coworker, and leaf right there. A couple of bottles of wine for a coworker, and man, those cravings of bourbon just subconsciously kind of physically took me over, and before I knew it, I was standing in that liquor store right in front of the bourbon. And I, in that situation, was able to get away from it and get out of it, but that was something that I had to deal with. So do you have cravings? Do you have urges to drink? When you go by a liquor store, you go by a bar, you smell something, you see somebody else drinking, you see an advertisement, do those things trigger those cravings and those urges for you? Or are you able to simply move on beyond it and not really worry about that? Next up, does alcohol present you with negative interactions and negative consequences at work, in your personal life, and with your relationships? If alcohol negatively impacts your personal work or your personal life, your relationships, and your professional job, that is another red flag that you are probably drinking too much when it starts to overtake some of those three integral parts of your lifestyle. And that's something that, again, you have to measure and think about. Next, over time, does it take more and more alcohol for you to get drunk? So this obviously is tolerance levels. And there are some people who can drink all day, 30 beers a day. That's what they believe is their normal because they are so deep into the alcohol addiction. But if you find yourself over and over and over needing more and more and more to continue to be satisfied, that again is another red flag in terms of someone who could have a drinking problem. Next, if you've tried to quit before, have you had withdrawal symptoms? You know, the classic withdrawal symptom is you try to go to sleep at night and you're unable to. You're restless, you're antsy. You might not even make the connection as to why you feel that way first. And that's something that happened with me early on. And I realized that I had been using alcohol to get myself to sleep, to relieve stress. And it's something that my body got so used to that when I tried to go to sleep for the first 4, 5, 6 days, when I decided to finally get sober, I did have those kind of super anxious moments at night, restless legs, tossing, turning, couldn't sleep. You call it shakes, like whatever you want to call it. I had a lot of those withdrawal symptoms, which kind of scared me and was a sign to me that, you know, enough's enough, and I'm in too deep, and I need to make some changes here. And there's other withdrawal symptoms, but those are kind of the big ones. Does your drinking result in increases in depression and anxiety and decreases in happiness? Right? Oftentimes people will drink with the misnomer that it's going to create more happy experiences for them. But what ends up happening is you fall into this lots of alcohol, drunk, then increases in depression and anxiety, and you try to solve it again. So you drink a lot more and you have more depression and anxiety, and it's a really bad cycle. Your happiness goes down. You don't experience the things that you're supposed to experience that you think you're going to have. Do you see that cycle going on with you while you are drinking and engaging in alcohol? Okay. Next, do you think, or have others ever told you that they're worried about you and your drinking? Does it Do you have a negative reputation or a reputation as a heavy drinker or someone that puts themselves and others at risk because of alcohol? Just ask your friends sometimes if you want a measuring stick or if you want a coworker to give you some insight. Say, hey, do you think my drinking is out of control? Do you think it's too much? Do you think it's more than what is considered normal or more than what I should do? And if those people are honest with you, hopefully they'll give you some good answers. But if you yourself kind of get a sense that, hey, I have this negative reputation or drinking is damaging my reputation, then that's another sign that you probably should reassess where you're at. I know in my professional career, there have been people in multiple places that I've worked where the rumors and the conversations are around, man, that person drinks too much. I wish they would get some help. Let's try to help that person. They don't even realize it because they're in the middle of it. They only hang around with people who drink the same amount as them. And hey, they've lost a lot of friends because of their drinking. Those are all things that you really need to take stock in and figure out, is that because of alcohol? Have you ever been hospitalized because of drinking, right? Alcoholic poisoning. Have you had to go to the hospital for that physical stuff that relates to alcohol? Or maybe it's mental health and alcoholism. Maybe that's a part of this too. So have you been hospitalized due to alcoholism or due to drinking? That's kind of another, that is another red flag in terms of do you drink too much? And then lastly, do you have feelings of guilt? Right? The very first episode that I did, I talked about how I woke up on the floor after drinking way too much, and I didn't plan on drinking really anything, but I drank way too much bourbon, way too much beer, and I woke up on a cold bathroom floor in my basement, hoping that my two daughters didn't see me there or didn't come down to check on me in the morning. I was super guilty that I couldn't be the dad that I wanted to be that morning. I couldn't make them breakfast. I couldn't wake them up. I couldn't do those types of things that I wanted to be able to do. Again, for me, that was a huge red flag. Like, hey, I got to do something different. And if it's not going to be for me, it's going to be for my kids. And ultimately, man, it has been beautiful for me as well. So do you have feelings of guilt the morning after because of your drinking? Maybe you've engaged in risky behaviors the night before. Maybe you don't remember them. And that's another huge question to ask yourself. Do you drink so much that you have memory loss, that you black out or pass out? You wake up in areas in a situation where you don't know how you got there. Those are all very dangerous situations, and it's a sign that you're drinking too much. The trick with all of this is that these things can either be very easy to see or very difficult to see, right? It's not black and white. There's lots and lots of gray in do I drink too much as a question, or am I an alcoholic as a question, right? And they can be very mild situations to very severe situations, both physically, mentally, as well as spiritually, which I do discuss a lot as well also. So those are things to think about. If you have, if you want to do anything, start with those questions. And if you answer yes to some of those questions, seek out some help, talk to someone around you. And I always talk about 3 or 4 different ways where you can get some help. Before I do that, the latest research and stats indicate that about 15 to 20 million people in the United States have alcohol use disorder or alcoholism. Those are diagnosed. So you're talking 15 to 20 million in a country with about 350 million last I checked. And the other statistics are that in a normal month, about 140 million people in the United States consume alcohol. So you are talking a good, third of the United States is drinking alcohol. But there are a ton of people out there that are sober, and it's more and more and more that people are making this decision to benefit their own life and their lives of people around them that they love and that love them. But here are the big 3 or 4 different ways that you can seek out help. First is AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. You can check out, there's local chapters everywhere. Do a quick Google search. You'll find any information that you need. I always talk about Meeting Guide. That's an app, and you can find AA meetings. You can look for open AA meetings where anybody is accepted, and you can just go there and start that journey as a group of within AA. The other one is, I always have to look at it, SAMHSA. that is about mental health and addiction. It is a website. There's a helpline you can call. It's like a 1-800 number that you can call, and you can get a ton of resources that way. And then there's Smart Recovery. This is a newer one that I've recently dabbled with and looked at. But again, these are all ways that you can start to get help. You can start to make these changes that will result in such a beautiful life, and you'll be able to open your eyes and see what's out there in different ways that like you never experienced for yourself and for the people around you. So I went through about maybe 12 to 15 questions. Reach out if you have comments, whatever. And that's another episode of At the Cabin with Matt. Bye for now.